This video is brought to you by Scrappydogscooters, www.scrappydogscooters.com. Hello folks, this is Mo from Scrappy Dog Scooters. Today we are going to install a 59mm big bore kit into this GY6 buggy motor. If you look here, we have our jug. These are the parts that are supplied from Scrappy Dog. Our piston and our piston pin. Our piston pin clips here in this little bitty bag. We don't want to lose those. In our box here we have our piston rings, brand new. Our gasket set here. You notice there's only two gaskets, head gasket and a base gasket, and our 59mm head. Okay, we're going to get started here. First thing we want to do is to remove our valve cover. For this we need a 5/16 or 8mm 6-point socket, and of course a ratchet. Simply remove the 4 small bolts here, or screws, that hold the valve cover in place. Once we get this screw out of here, then we can get a hold of the valve cover and simply just pull it off. I usually put the screws inside so I don't lose them. Next, we're going to take the same 5/16 or 8mm, and we're going to remove our chain tensioner here. Simply remove these 2 bolts out of here. Being a little bit stubborn, but that's okay. Notice that it will push up as it pulls out, because this tensioner is actually spring loaded here. We'll talk about this on reassembly. Now we're going to pull the 4 head nuts off of here. These are usually 12mm. You want to make sure that when you take these off, that you take them off crossing each other, so that we're giving even tension on pulling them off. Getting them loose here, and we'll just pull them off. And underneath these nuts you're going to find flat washers. You want to pull those off also and lay them off to the side. Go. Now simply grab a hold of the rocker arm assembly, pull it off and lay it off to the side. You'll notice that the cam jumps over a little bit. Take the chain off, set the cam over, and while I got a hold of the chain, I always take a zip tie or a hunk of wire or something and wrap around the chain, just in case it drops back into the bottom of the case. If that happens, you got to disassemble the case. Simply just pull the head off now. There we go. And lay it off to the side here. Remove and discard the old gasket. And at the same time here, we want to pull out the bottom tensioner, bottom guide if you will. grabbing a hold of it, pushing down, wiggle a little bit, watch the chain. Sometimes these can be a little stubborn. Get a hold of it. There we go. Alright, now we can set the jug off to the side. Now I'm going to move the motor to the side here. We're going to remove the piston pin clip here. Of course, there's a clip on each side. We're just going to get this one out of here. After we get both of them out, then I can take a socket here and simply just push in the hole. A little stubborn. Sometimes these can be a little tight, so you got to work at it. Get the pin to push out. Grab a hold of the pin there, pull it off, and we can grab the piston and take and set it against the side here somewhere. Okay, now we're ready to start reassembling. We can take our piston here. We're going to put our rings on. We want to take our spring for our oil rings. Keep in mind there's two of them. Take and set this around. Make sure everything clips into place where it belongs. We take the bottom ring and we slide it into the groove on the far side of the spring that we just put in there. Very carefully, just work around. These rings are not that fragile, but you need to be careful. Once we get that in, then you want to take and orientate that to there, and then on the opposite side we want to put the top portion of the oil ring in place. That gives a lot better seal that way. Okay, now we're going to install our second from the bottom ring, or our center ring. These rings are usually marked here with a dot or something that points up, could be a letter. Set that in the second groove. Gently work around, getting that in place. Once again, we want to take this ring here, same thing, some type of a marking that designates top, slide it into place. Once you get these on, then we want to orientate it just like we did the oil ring. We won't be 180 degrees out of each other from the top and the second ring. Okay, now we want to take our clip for our piston pin using a pair of pliers. We're going to set it inside here. There's a little groove inside the piston that this clip has to sit in so that the pin don't come flying out as the motor's running. I'll make sure it's in there good and solid. Okay, there we go. When you look at the top of the piston here, you'll see an N or something that designates that that's the intake, so that wants to go on the top. Rotate it, slide it in there. Take our pin, push our pin in, work it till everything lines up, and she should slide in pretty easy. There we go. Got that in place. Take our opposite clip, our pliers there, and gently work that into place where it belongs. Okay, now that we got all that, we want to take a little RTV here. I like using clear RTV. The trick with RTV is you've got to use it very, very sparingly. You don't, the bigger the glob, the better the job does not apply here. You want to put a real thin coat all the way around where the gasket's going to sit. And don't be afraid of it, just nice and thin, and make sure you get an even coat on all the surfaces for the gasket. And we take our gasket here and slide it over our chain, down over our jug studs here, work it down, Be careful here that you don't rip the gasket. Take your time, slide it down, get the piston moved in place, slide it right down into now we're going to take our jug and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to apply a very thin coat of silicone right around all the shiny surfaces where the gasket's going to mate. Watch your oil hole here on this side. You'll see it as you're putting everything together. Don't get a big glob of silicone in that oil jacket. Okay, now we take our assembly grease. We want to coat the inside of the jug here. Don't want to have a dry start when we go to start this. Plus the assembly grease helps when we go to slide the piston into the jug or the jug on top of the piston, whichever way you want to look at it. And now we're ready to slide the jug down on the piston. I want to do this kind of easy, making sure that we get the chain guides where they belong, the chain up out of the way. Slide it down here. Okay, now we want to set this right on top of the first ring, and we want to start working it in very carefully using your thumbs. If you've got a ring tool, that'll help, but actually these are beveled going in, so you shouldn't have an issue. Just take your time, work it down just a little bit at a time, making sure that you get the rings pushed into their grooves on the pistons. And once you get all that work down, then you can take and just simply slide this down. May have to move the crank a little bit to push that piston up. We want to get her slid right down into the hole here. There it goes. And now it's in place where it belongs. Okay. Now we're ready to take our chain guide. Make sure that we've got the grooved in here where the chain slides. We'll pull the chain up, slide it right into there, slide it right into the clips. There's two little clips there, two little ends. Take our head gasket, slide it onto the chain, and carefully slide it over the jug studs here. Get it down into place. Have to work past the threads. Just be careful, take your time. This isn't a big rush job. Make sure everything slides down, pushes down into place like so here. Okay, now we take our dowels here, set them into place. These make sure that the head is aligned properly when we go to set it down. Push those down in nice and bottomed out. Take our new 59mm head, slide it through the chain, make sure the chain guides where it belongs, get it on the studs here, work back and forth. You notice I got hold of the chain so it don't slide down inside the motor. Work it down until it's nice and flush here. There we go. Okay, now we want to take our two bolts, our two long bolts, and we want to install them at this point and snug them down real good. This will keep our head from moving while we finish the assembly and get our cam and everything and our timing set correctly. Just tighten this down, snug them down real good. Okay, that should take care of that. Take our two dowel pins, set them in place so to make sure that our rocker assemblies get orientated correctly and they don't slide side to side. go. At this point we want to take a little break so I can show you. You want to make sure before we go any farther that your timing is correct. You'll notice it on the flywheel. There's a T mark and an F mark. You want the T mark to be set with the alignment mark. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. You can't see it, but that's what I'm checking, is make sure the T mark's set with the case. Now we're going to cut our zip tie off here. Get a hold of our cam. You're going to see three holes in the cam, two small and one large. You want to make sure that the two small are adjacent with the top of the head and the large hole is at the top. Set that down in place. Now we're going to take our rocker arm assembly, making sure it's orientated correctly. Set it down into place. And take and put our washers on. Now we take our nuts, place them on our studs, run them down finger tight. Same thing for the other two. We want to make sure that we cross tighten these nuts and we tighten them down slowly, a little bit on each one. We don't want to corrupt the head gasket, so we tighten it down just a little bit, make sure it's snug. About the same snugness on each one. Now we take our torque wrench and set it at 15 foot-pounds, and we take and we got a clicker style here so that we know when it clicks that it hits 15 foot-pounds, and we want to make sure that once again that we're cross tightening. Then we go back and we double check. There we go. Click, 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 and the last one till it clicks. There we go. Alright, now she's all torqued down. And now we're going to take this screw out of our tensioner here, a little Phillips head screw, and it's going to reveal to us a small screwdriver slot. Take our little screwdriver and we start turning it, and you will notice that it draws the tensioner back in. With our gasket in place there, we slide that in, hold it in place. Then we take and we put our bolts in. Once again, just about everything on this is 5/16 or 8 millimeter. And get these nice and tightened down here. We can release it once we get that there. Twist it again, make sure she's all the way twisted. Then we tighten down our tensioner. Make sure that it's good and tight here. Release the screwdriver, which then applies tension to the chain. Take our plug, our Phillips head plug here, put it in place, tighten it down. There, tensioners are installed. Okay, once again, this is very important. We want to double check to make sure that our timing marks are where they belong, so you can rotate the motor a couple turns, stopping with your T mark on your alignment. Then check and make sure that your cam looks just like this. Of course, you'll have the chain on it, and if that's correct, we're good to go. If it's not correct, then you'll need to go back and reset it and make sure that it's just like this. Now it's time to do our valve adjustment. I do this a little different than most folks. Some folks like to do it on top dead center. I like to rotate the motor till the exhaust valve is fully open, and then adjust the intake. We'll take our tool here, 9mm, pull the cinch nut, take our feeler gauge. I like using 4/1000ths of an inch, and then we rotate the adjustment pin down till it's just snug on the feeler gauge. Sliding it, okay, that's good. We'll run our cinch nut down a little bit, take our 9mm tool, and this tool also holds the center, and then just tighten her down. And check, yep, that's good. Now we'll rotate the motor again. This time we want to make sure that the intake valve is fully open. Alrighty. And the same procedure follows for the exhaust. I use 4/1000ths, both intake and exhaust. Back my pin off here. Slide my feeler gauge in. Adjust my pin down. And then once again, hand tighten the cinch nut. Take my 9mm tool, put it in place. There we go. And then boom, tighten her up. And that takes care of the valve adjustment. Okay, now we want to take a little bit of silicone. Once again, use a thin coat. Bigger the glob, the better the job. Does not apply, God, I love that saying, all the way around the top of the head. When we take our valve cover, we set it in place, and then simply just put our screws in. Whoops, dropped it down. Oh well, at least you get the idea. Putting the bottom ones in now. I like to get everything finger tight before I tighten it down with a ratchet. That way everything's good and snug. And we tighten them down. And that completes the assembly of our 59mm big bore kit. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching. This presentation was brought to you by Scrappydogscooters, www.scrappydogscooters.com, where you can find a variety of OEM and performance parts for your 2- or 4-stroke Chinese motors. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.